Next question is, why is a COVID-19 vaccination taking so long?
Thanks for the question, Kayla. This is a good one. Why is the COVID-19 vaccine production taking so long? We need to talk a little bit about how this process works, and we need to talk a little bit about how vaccines work in general. So first, we develop antibodies in our body when we are exposed to something. So a vaccine, or I'm showing my age here, back in the day, your booster shot, you get exposed to a weakened or altered virus that's not as potent, but will hopefully then develop the antibodies that actually would recognize the actual virus if you actually got exposed to it. And so the way that happens now is that the scientists, the researchers actually do that in the lab first. And it can also now, because of the ability to do work with the genetic portion of the virus, they can actually take and expose a human or a body to a portion of the DNA sequence, and that creates the antibody response, and hopefully that would create this. So that's a pretty cool thing. But here, let's talk about how the vaccine development goes next. There's several phases, and you're going to hear this a lot: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. But pretty basically, what phase 1 means, you have to go through a period of time where you are giving this proposed vaccine to subjects and seeing a couple things. One, does it create an antibody response? And two, what about safety? Is it causing any bad problems? So you have to do that first out of the gate. Phase 2, you begin to expand the numbers that you are testing. Maybe some folks that might be in areas where it might be helpful for them to, have, like healthcare workers, et cetera. But you begin to expand the numbers and try to collect a little more data. And then if you are feeling pretty good, you move into what's called phase 3 trials. And that's where we are with the vaccine development of COVID. What does phase 3 trials mean? It means that we have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people being given in what's called a double-blind fashion this vaccine. What do I mean by double-blind? It means if I am somebody getting the vaccine, I don't know if I'm actually just getting the actual vaccine or if I'm just getting what sometimes is called a placebo or something else. It's double-blind because the person giving me the immunization also doesn't know. So you see, there's not bias either way. But you have to have enough people that you're testing, that you have enough people in both groups, what's called the intervention group and the control group. And there has to be enough sample size, is what researchers say, to really be able to test, was there a different outcome with this group versus this group? Here's the other challenge with COVID-19. Likely it's going to need a booster type shot 1 month later, like a second immunization, and we're familiar with that with some of the other immunizations we get. So one, that has to be done. Two, the booster one, and then we have to be able to follow people long enough for enough weeks and months to see, did they actually A, get the infection, B, if they did get the infection, maybe was it not as severe, maybe it didn't last as long, and then contrast the groups that actually got the vaccine and the groups that did not. This is something that's so important. And just as a rule of thumb, I was taught this a while back. Let's say you have a side effect that only shows up about 1 in 10,000 immunizations. You need probably a sample size of 60,000 people to be able to adequately assess for whether that statistically is happening with one group or the other. So that is a lot of people to follow, and to follow them long enough. Now, you're hearing some talk at the political level about, oh, we're accelerating the process. You can't accelerate that phase 3 process. What you could possibly accelerate, and I have read this, is that normally after phase 3, you would go into the manufacturing phase and you'd begin to develop millions of doses of this. And normally that wouldn't start till you knew which vaccine was going to be effective. There is some activity going on right now to begin to manufacture high numbers of vaccine. Several different ones that are being tried with the idea that whichever one ends up working, fine, we'll use that. It does mean there may be millions of vaccines that are not effective that are being made right now, but that's the hedging the bet. Do you see what I mean? We're going to try to get ahead of that. And then I should mention lastly, there is a phase 4. Once you do be given the vaccines, just like Bryce has been talking about, you continue to monitor for side effects, et cetera. So anyway, that process, by definition, and you want it to take long enough for it to be effective and safe.